Welcome to Biologica. I'm Dr. Susan, a veterinarian and a marine educator from Maine. On this show, we'll be exploring the many ways that animals and humans interact and that society and nature intersect. Please visit my Patreon or my Podbean page to support the show or to suggest future episodes. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the episode today. Thanks for listening.
Now you're lifting me up instead of holding me down, stealing my heart instead of stealing my crown. Untangled all the strings around my wings and we're tied. I didn't know him and I didn't know me. Cloud nine was always out of reach. Now I remember what it feels like to fly. You give me butterflies.
Today's episode is going to be about the monarch butterfly. We'll touch a little bit on butterflies in general, but we will specifically focus on the monarch, which is an iconic and beloved species, both as a butterfly and as a symbol for protection of pollinators everywhere. Because of the monarch's importance in many different ways, we're going to interview two different people. Both a scientist, David James, who has dedicated his life to studying and better understanding the life cycle and migration of the monarch butterfly, and Ward Johnson, a conservationist who has spent the last 10 or more years of his life focusing on saving the monarch butterfly. We'll have both the scientific and the conservation perspective because they're really intricately linked and synergistic topics. To really understand how to save the monarch butterfly and pollinators in general, we need to understand their life cycles and their biology. It's also a really fascinating topic. There's a lot of concern over what is happening with the monarch populations in North America, and justifiably so. But one of the things we'll do on this episode, while talking both to a conservationist and a scientist, is also look at what gives us reason to hope and what is perhaps more resilient about the monarch butterfly than we might expect. While the monarch butterfly has faced many challenges and its population numbers have shown those challenges, there's a silver lining, or perhaps I should say a golden lining to the story. We're also going to rear some butterflies together, starting by ordering them as caterpillars and going from there and seeing how it goes. I decided to rear painted lady butterflies. I had done that before in past years with my children, but in the course of this episode, I have learned that people do rear monarch butterflies, and some of the people that rear monarch butterflies directly support the research of the scientists that we'll be speaking with today. Without further ado, we're going to go and take a look at our caterpillars and check them out and see how they're doing.
Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Such a sexy.
Checking in on the caterpillars on their second day, the painted lady caterpillars, and actually they're picking up steam. They're starting to crawl around. There are a lot of caterpillar poops. I assume they're poops. They're little tiny deposits on the side of their little container. The food medium looks disturbed, and I could swear some of them are a lot bigger. I know it's only been like 12 hours, but I guess that's what they're made to do, is eat and grow. So we are rocking and rolling with the painted lady caterpillars. It's May 3rd, and I'm peeking at the caterpillars, and it's really exciting news. They've actually tripled in size. They all seem to be crawling around and investigating. One of the caterpillars is up on the top, sort of hanging down or starting to partially hang down from the lid, which is where they supposedly will be making their chrysalises. Kyle and I are here. We just checked the chrysalids, and it looks like they are hardened, and they have some webbing that we're supposed to gently remove. I think there's like a little feeding cup perhaps as
Yes,
well.
I found that too. But it looks like
good.
you don't need that till they actually hatch.
Okay. All right. One thing, do you want to take one and I'll take one?
Sure.
So we do this really gently.
I have the cotton swab, a cotton swab.
Yes.
A little bit nervous about this.
I know.
Like if I knock it too much.
I know. It's a little intimidating.
Oh wow, the chrysalids are have kind of a metallic sheen to them.
Oh,
like
that's
shimmering.
really pretty.
That's
You
so
feel
cool.
like- I'm trying to. Oh, mine have. Look at that. Mine have this. That's beautiful.
They have
When
what?
the metallic.
Oh yeah,
When you look at them, they look like boring brown things, and then
really pretty.
when you move them in the light, they have these metallic dots.
That one's
Oh,
nice.
look at it wiggle.
Wow.
Whoa. They said they do that to scare off predators. Maybe it almost feels like that would attract predators. So there's
Yeah.
part of me that's not sure about that. Maybe it just
Got all the
startles them. Okay, we're placing the butterfly habitats.
Where should we put it?
I was thinking maybe our bedroom because the cats can't go in there.
Okay, good call.
Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Come my lady, you're my pretty baby.
Now we're going to take a pause on rearing the painted lady butterflies and investigating their life cycle. We're going to speak first with Dr. David James, a scientist who focuses on the monarch butterfly. I'm here with Dr. David James, an associate professor of entomology at Washington State University, and thank you for joining us to talk about butterflies, and particularly monarch butterflies today.
You're welcome.
Dr. James, can I ask you how you became interested in monarch butterflies and studying them?
Well, I've always been interested in butterflies ever since I was a child. And I grew up in England, and the monarch is a very rare visitor there, and I never saw one when I was growing up. But then I moved to Australia, and in Sydney, Australia, the monarch is common, and so this seemingly exotic butterfly was well within my reach. So long story short, I ended up doing a PhD on the monarch in Sydney, Australia. And really that's where my journey with the monarch began.
Wonderful. And I definitely want to ask you about how they're doing and what's been happening. But before that, I was wondering how you study them. How do you go about tracking them or documenting what's happening with their population?
Well, a lot of it's just, in the local area. I mean, I live in Washington State, so I monitor populations during the summer. But, the Pacific Northwest population of monarchs, or the western population generally, has not been studied as much as the eastern population, in terms of summer breeding and certainly migration. So back in 2012, I think it was, I decided to start a tagging program. So that, we assumed they overwinter, our monarchs in the Pacific Northwest migrated to California for overwintering, but there was no actual evidence. There was no we hadn't done any tagging, so we didn't know that was actually true. So, long story short, again, we commenced the tagging program, and now we have good documentation that our Pacific Northwest monarchs do migrate all the way down to coastal California in September and overwinter there. And that work has been published. So and that's all been possible because of an army of citizen scientists that have been involved in the tagging. I mean, all the research was done, unfunded because of the assistance of dedicated people in, rearing and tagging monarchs, and also people finding them, of course. So that's one of the, the biggest ways that we've studied monarchs is through tagging them.
That's really cool. And on this podcast, which tends to attract nature and animal lovers, we have talked a little bit about citizen science projects with Big Night looking at amphibians. So it's cool to tie that in with the monarchs. So what are you seeing? I lived in Pacific Grove, California, actually years ago, and I remember going to a nature preserve there. And when they were migrating, they just covered the trees. And I've been hearing that the Western populations are under threat or have had some declines. And I wondered if you could speak to a little bit about what's been happening to them or with them.
Yes, well, the population, the Western population, as judged by the number of overwintering individuals, has definitely declined. We're fortunate in having had and continue to have a citizen scientist again, monitoring program of overwintering populations since 1997. And so this is something that's done every year. And because our populations are not on the scale of Mexican populations where they have to estimate them by, the area that they cover, the populations in the West have always been, in the thousands and hundreds of thousands. So it's possible to actually go out and count them at individual sites. And that's the other thing, that they're spread amongst up to 200 individual sites. So these citizen scientists have been out there, every autumn since 1997, counting butterflies at the overwintering sites. So we have good data, and that data does show the decline in the region of 90%, maybe even higher for some years since 1997. 1997, the overall Western population was estimated at more than 1 million butterflies, I believe. But last winter, the overwintering population numbered 9,000, which was the second lowest number reported since 1997. So, but it's not. It hasn't been like that all the time. The lowest population was in 2020 when there was less than 2,000 reported. But a year after that, they rebounded to nearly 300,000, which is a number that has been pretty consistent since about 2002, right up to 2020. That number between 200 to 300,000 has been very consistent during that year. So there was a big drop around the turn of the century from 1 million to about 250,000, say. And it's been consistent. But as I say, since 2020, there's been some very significant oscillations, down to 2,000, then back up to the normal 250, 300,000, and then last year, as I say, back to 9,000. So yeah, there has been a decline, but then a period of stability, and more recently some dramatic declines. Hopefully this year the numbers will go back up again, but that is to be seen, of course.
What are the main threats facing the monarch? And this is maybe a two-part question. Could you also speak to what might be giving them a capacity for rebounding or resilience? Like, what are the threats and what are the reasons for hope?
Right. Well, there's three major threats. Habitat loss, of course, is an important one. And with these three, threats that I'll mention, we don't really know which of them is the most important. They probably fluctuate in importance from year to year. So habitat loss, and maybe in the West that's not such a big a deal as in the East. We do still have a lot of milkweed, but milkweed historically in the West is not as widespread across the landscape as it is in the East, because we are in the West, which is hot and arid in a lot of places. So milkweed has always been confined to riparian areas along rivers and creeks and such like, and it's still in those areas. There has, historically there's been some in farmlands and along roadsides, and that has definitely been in decline through various reasons, mostly through authorities getting rid of it along roadsides and farmers removing it from fields. So there has been some decline, but there's a lot of people actually growing milkweed, of course. So that might be replacing some of the loss. So that's one factor, habitat loss. The second factor is pesticides, and in my opinion, this is a major contributor, mainly because of a group of insecticides called the neonicotinoids, and there's much research on these chemicals and evidence to show that they are causing declines in butterflies throughout the world. It's a big subject, so I won't go into detail here, but I think they are having an impact on monarch butterflies silently and slowly over time, along with other butterflies. And the third factor is climate change, and the fact that temperatures are increasing and causing monarchs to change their behavior, and also causing suffering to them, not allowing them to breed as much. We're getting more heat waves in the west now, so that it does appear that these prolonged heat waves are impacting breeding populations, because we know that monarchs do not like temperatures above, say, 95 degrees, and we're getting, we've always had temperatures above 95, but they're usually been, with just a few days, perhaps, in the Pacific Northwest, for example. But now, sometimes we get these prolonged heat waves where they last for a week or two, and so that definitely has an impact. It doesn't totally kill off the population, but it, the breeding suffers, and the number of individuals that can be produced declines. And personally, I think that last year's decline was caused by that, because we had a pretty good summer population until we had a heat wave in late July, early August, in the Pacific Northwest, and we saw pretty dramatically sightings reduce, all over the Pacific Northwest, and apparently over the whole western US, and that, I think, was a major contributing factor to the fact the population, the overwintering population last year was, low, because we had this summer impact of the heat wave. So those are the three factors that are the most important, I think. I mean, there are other things too, just natural mortality through predators and parasites, but that's always been happening, and it varies over time. Some years are bad for that, and then they recover. So that's more of a natural thing. But the three factors that I mentioned are things that humans have had an impact in all three.
Well, thank you for sharing those. And in that subject, what are signs for hope, or what helps them be stronger? What can people do if they care about monarchs or butterflies in general?
Yes, I mean, the major thing is that the monarch is a very resilient insect. And so if conditions are right, they have the ability to rebound. And we saw that in 2021 after the lowest overwintering year, where they went from 2,000 in 2020 to, I think it was 239,000 the following year. And that was, amazing. So they do have the ability to rebound if given the opportunity. So we can help give them the opportunity by making sure milkweed is always there. As individuals, that's probably the only thing we can do. Oh, also not use the pesticides that I mentioned. That's something that we can all do in not using pesticides in our own properties. So there's those two things. The habitat, the climate change is obviously something as individuals we can't do much about. It's a long-term thing. But as I said, the monarch is resilient and adaptable. And so they can change. And we're seeing evidence of that in the West. With warming temperatures, we're seeing that instead of overwintering in the traditional way, some populations or some individuals, when they go to California, they migrate to California, they don't end up on the overwintering trees in Pacific Grove, etc. And instead, because we've had a few autumns recently where it's been very warm, part of the population has decided to to reproduce and continue breeding, become a breeding population instead of a non-breeding population at overwintering sites. And so that's an example of a population adapting to a change in environment. And we likely will see more of that in the future. The monarch adapting to different conditions. So, there's a lot of concern by people, by people for the future of the monarch. But I'm in the camp where I think the adaptation and the resilience of the species will overcome these changes, the natural changes, or we can argue about whether climate change is natural or not, but it's a change that is occurring slowly. And if changes occur slowly, then butterflies like the monarch has the opportunity to adapt. Populations will suffer while they are adapting, but the important thing is that they won't go extinct. I'm firmly of the opinion that extinction is not something that's going to happen with the monarch unless we, eradicate all the milkweed and or spray so much that really, kills populations dramatically. And I don't think either of those things are going to happen because we care about monarchs too much, or not too much, but we care about them a lot, and that's good.
Yes, I agree. I saw in one of your papers you described them as iconic, and I really think that's true, that people really have an interest and feel a connection there.
Yeah, they are. They're a flagship for the pollinator movement, which is great. I mean, they just, grab people more than a honeybee even, because they just are. It's hard to describe in any other way except iconic, really. They just, for some reason, and I've seen this throughout my time with the monarch, they just grab people. I worked with prisoners at one point with the tagging program, and I was amazed at how monarch butterflies just grabbed the attention of these hardened criminals in prison more than puppies or kittens, which they had programs with those animals there as well. But it was the monarchs that grabbed their attention. These really intimidating people. I know. And so you go from that to children. The children are just fascinated and grabbed by the monarch as well. So it's just something in our human psyche that attracts us to monarchs more than the average butterfly, I guess.
Well, I think that's really cool, and I'm excited to share this. And thank you so much for the work you do on monarchs and for talking to us about them today.
You're welcome. The more publicity the monarch gets, the better. I think it just snowballs the iconic nature of them, I think. And it's not just people in this country either, it's people throughout the world. People that don't even have monarchs in their land. They see monarchs in books and they're still drawn to them and attracted to them. So it is a worldwide thing. So it's great.
Well, thank you, Dr. David James. We really appreciate talking with you today.
Thank you very much for letting me talk.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Mariposas bailan en mi pecho, el calor no se dispersa, amor. Oye, nena, te quiero besar de los pies a la cabeza, amor. Me prendes tanto, soy un lobo hambriento.
I'm looking at the chrysalids and no activity. It's kind of amazing to think they're totally restructuring their bodies inside the little cocoons. But They're hanging there quietly. I've been keeping an eye on them every day, waiting. It's been 3 days since we moved them, but no sign yet. Stay tuned. Now that we've spoken with the scientist, Dr. David James, and learned about his fascinating research about the monarch butterfly, we're going to pivot and talk with a conservationist who became inspired and dedicated his life to trying to help save and conserve the monarch butterfly as a species. I'm here with Ward. He's the president and chairman of the Save Our Monarchs Foundation. Thank you for talking with me today, Ward.
Yes, hello. Pleased to be here. We've been in business about 11 years as a foundation devoted to saving the monarchs. So our great motivation has been to send as many milkweed seed packets out as we possibly can. So far in 11 years, we've done almost 11 million packets from here out to our various clients across the U.S. and Canada.
Wow, that's a lot of milkweed for a lot of monarchs. That's very cool. How did it all get started? Can you tell me about how you got interested and how the organization or foundation began?
Sure. Sure. Well, when I was growing up, I came from a rural community, and we had monarchs everywhere, and so I've been always kind of tuned in on the issue of the monarchs. Well, I'm a let's get things done sort of a person. So my
Mhm.
wife and I decided to create milkweed seed packets that we could send to people and encourage each person to plant as many as they possibly can. So that was our motivation. It was pretty simple. I ended up getting a U.S. government 501c classification. So we're actually a Minnesota charity.
That's really wonderful. And you said you send milkweed packets all over US and Canada?
I send about 100,000 a month.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Thank you for that. And in the notes for this episode, we'll definitely link to your website so people can learn more about it that way. What is your favorite part of doing this?
It's just kind of self motivating. I'm let's get done sort of a guy. The odds are so hard, so tough against the monarch, mainly because the whole U.S. is devoted to using the Roundup weed killing stuff on all their crops. So all the rural agricultural areas are no longer a valid place for us to go because they're all poisoned.
Mm.
So my whole motivation is to try to get a lot of evangelists out there to get people doing this in every city in the country to try to get more people. It's like in Minneapolis, everyone is planting milkweed, mainly because I've been so busy and active and kind of really forceful in getting all these things done to the best of my ability. So it's the best you can do. I wish I could do better. I keep trying. I'm never going to quit.
That's really cool. And thank you for making the link there with the pesticides and herbicides and things like that. I don't know the details yet, but you'll be happy to hear that our town here just passed a very strict rule, sort of rolling back what's allowed to be used here in our town. So maybe hand in hand with the milkweed plantings and maybe some local places starting to take action on the pesticides, that'll be a good combo.
Yes, my supplier of all my packets now is from New Hampshire. So I
Oh,
get
cool.
every month I get 100,000 packets delivered into my garage, and
Wow.
then we proceed to get them distributed out to everybody that wants it. Many people have to pay. If you get more than 100, you have to pay. But that's how we keep our place alive.
Hmm. Well, it's really cool to think of the monarchs migrating, but in the meantime, this grassroots movement to try and support them and spread the milkweed. What do you find most challenging about what you're taking on?
It's just getting to as many people as I can. That's the hardest part is to try to get in front of like we've gone to all the garden clubs of the USA. We've gone to all the various communities across the USA and just trying to get everybody started, and it's I can say all I want, but I can't make anybody do anything. So it's an uphill battle, but I'm not going to quit. Just one of those things.
Well, thank you for everything you're doing. I feel inspired, and actually, I'm kind of a pesticide-free yard here, so I feel excited after our conversation to go try and plant some milkweed this spring. What do you think inspires and connects people with butterflies in general and with monarchs in particular?
Well, nobody doesn't love monarchs.
Hmm. That is
Nobody
true.
doesn't love monarchs. I mean, that is a fact. It's a very inspirational thing for me, and I'm 83 years old, and I'm going to keep on going as long as I can.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate so much what you're doing. And I know we're miles and miles apart, but I'm nearby where you're sourcing your seeds from. So it's pretty cool. And here in Maine and beyond, I'm excited to hear about what you're doing there in Minnesota and that it's kind of connecting people all around the States and Canada. So thank you.
Well, I have a lot. I have a lot of fans. I have 155,000 people on my mailing list, and
Nice.
I've got 70,000 people have liked us on Facebook. So we're basically getting a fair amount of exposure.
That's great.
Not as much as I'd like, but anything you can do to encourage people to get their butts in gear.
Yep.
Have it come to our website, order some seeds. We send them out within a week of receiving the order, and so there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ward, for this interview. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to sort of help in my own little way share and spread the word about the Save Our Monarchs Foundation. Thank you so much.
if you look at the internet, if you look at the website,
Hmm.
you'll find about us. You'll find a picture of our family. I've got my whole family involved with this. A whole bunch of them. They're all
Nice.
involved, and and actually this whole initiative was inspired by my mom, who I dedicated this whole program to my mom and dad. You'll find that story under about us on our internet also. So there is some background to this that might be of interest to various people. But anyway, I appreciate your interest. I appreciate your help, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much. And I will definitely check out the story and the history. That sounds really cool. And thank you again for meeting with me. I really appreciate it.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
You have a good
Appreciate your
evening. Thank you.
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Now I remember what it feels like to fly. You give me butterflies. Yeah, you give me butterflies.
After talking with Ward, I visited the Save Our Monarchs website to learn about the history he referenced. There's a page in the About Us section called Irvin and Gladys Are Inspiration, and I was really touched by it, and I'm going to read a short excerpt from it. Gladys and Irvin especially loved the monarch butterflies that visited their backyard gardens every summer. They would be heartbroken to hear what's happening to their populations and know they would be proud of our efforts to save them. Already concerned that the monarch's habitat was in danger, Irvin and Gladys spent their winter vacations driving their little pop-up camper down to Florida or Texas, planting milkweed seeds in parks along the roadway. After Gladys died, Irvin went to Mexico, where monarchs hibernate in the winter. There, he planted oyamel fir trees, I hope I pronounced that right, to shelter the dormant monarchs until they wake in the spring to begin the life cycle once again. We are inspired by Irvin and Gladys and their efforts to help save the monarch butterfly. The Save Our Monarch Foundation is dedicated to Irvin and Gladys. We believe that the only way to save our monarchs is the same way they did, getting our fingernails dirty and planting one milkweed plant at a time. They are my mom and dad. May they rest in peace. Ward Johnson, founder, Save Our Monarchs. Got little goosebumps reading that, and how inspirational that it's not only dedicated to them and they loved monarchs, but they actually were some of the early forerunners in working to plant milkweed and try to conserve monarch butterflies. If you would like to read more about the Save Our Monarchs Foundation or support their work, please visit their website, which I'll link to in the episode notes. And there's also a photo there of Irvin and Gladys. A donation was made on behalf of the Save Our Monarchs Foundation as part of this episode.
Now you're lifting me up instead of holding me down. You're taking my hand instead of taking my crown. Untangled all the strings around my wings and we're tied.
Thank you to both Dr. David James and Ward Johnson. I really enjoyed speaking with them today and also having the perspective of both the scientist and the conservationist about the monarch butterfly. Next, we're going to be circling back to our painted lady butterflies. I'm really excited. The first pretty lady butterfly has hatched. My daughter called me. I think I can see one empty one out of 10. And they have crawled up to the top of the enclosure and look really in good shape. The wings have already appeared to have dried out fully. I'm going to put I just ran out to the yard to get violets and lilacs, and then I sliced some grapefruit, and I'm going to slide those in here. I have to be kind of careful because she's right near the top, and I do not want her first flight to be in my bedroom. Oh, she fluttered around down there. Okay, this is cool. She's down at the bottom, and it looks like I didn't disturb any of the other ones. I apologize for my pets in the background. I hear my bird and my dog creating a little cacophony in the background. So the audio may not be perfect here, but maybe I'll leave it be a little bit and come check on it again. I'm checking on the pretty lady butterflies. It looks like we actually have 2 more hatched, and we have 2 more butterflies. So let's see, 1, 2, 3 butterflies. I think I should probably replace all the flowers and nectar tonight. Today is the first day that all 10 chrysalids have hatched, and we have 10 painted lady butterflies. I'm going to hold the phone near them and see if we can hear them flutter. They're pretty active. I don't know if you could hear that, but they've been crawling around the sides of the net enclosure and fluttering around. We've got fresh flowers, a sort of sugar water nectar on a sponge, and then some sliced fruit in there for them. We'll probably have to do that for a few days because there's a cold snap right now. And even though it's late May, it does not feel like late May outside. But in a couple days, it should be warming up. I should say it's May 20th today, and the chrysalids were first all formed on May 9th. So it's 11 days later that they've all 10 hatched out. I'm going to share a couple of these astonishing facts about monarch butterflies, some of which you may never have heard. I definitely hadn't heard of all of these things. These fascinating facts come from an educational website by the Australian Butterfly Sanctuary. Fact 1. Many monarch butterflies in North America travel 3,000 miles every year as a population, from Canada and northeastern U.S. and completing their journey in southwestern Mexico, and it takes 4 generations of butterflies to complete that journey. Fact number 2, monarch butterflies are poisonous. The larval stage, or the caterpillar of the monarch, eats milkweed, which is poisonous. It has cardiac or heart glycosides, and it stores those in its body and keeps them when it becomes a butterfly. If a predator eats a monarch, it usually doesn't die, but it can have health problems, including vomiting. The bright, beautiful colors of the monarch have evolved to be a warning sign to predators, and in a twist on this, some butterflies mimic those colors. That mimicry helps protect them from predators, even if they don't have that poison, because a predator might think twice about eating a butterfly that looks just like the dangerous monarch butterfly. Years ago, I took a science illustration course at UC Santa Cruz. It's an amazing program there. And I drew an illustration of a monarch and another butterfly that mimics it side by side. So I'll place that on both the Patreon page and the Instagram page for this episode. Fact number 3. Gold spots on the monarch butterfly chrysalises are from carotenoid pigments in milkweed. That's the same thing that makes carrots that you eat at home look orange. These cause the chrysalises to have these beautiful gold spots, and in fact, the word chrysalis comes from the Greek word for gold. For our final amazing fact about monarchs, the scientific name of the monarch butterfly is, and I apologize if I mispronounce this, Danaus plexippus. This is from the Greek for sleepy transformation, which is kind of beautiful because they do go through their metamorphosis inside the chrysalis, although they don't seem to always be sleepy in there. Each of us knows the monarch butterfly in the ways from our own life that we have encountered it or learned about it. For myself, my mother used to tell me stories, and I'm about to date myself because they were on car rides, and I remember sitting in the front seat on her lap as a very young child. But she would tell me wonderful meandering stories about a monarch butterfly that would come and visit, land on my shoulder, and just become friends with me. It would leave to migrate, and then the next season it would return and find me. Of course, there was a little bit of scientific, artistic license in this story, but as a child it made me feel very bonded and empathetic to these creatures. I think each of us has our own way in which we've experienced or found wonder in monarch butterflies. Here is Dr. Karen Gustafson, excerpted from an earlier episode about the sociology of biodiversity.
And in comparison to that, the monarch butterfly is quite different because they are a butterfly and they are very much different to us. So the butterfly and the monarch has sort of something else that has made it this iconic species. And in the monarch's case, like all the butterflies, the metamorphosis going through different stages in their life, from egg to larva to chrysalis and also to the butterfly. That is fascinating, but also this migration and this mystery of the migration that first had to be solved. Those living in the monarchs, like where they are in the summer, where do they go in the winters? And so it has been attached throughout history with a mystery, with appreciation of its beauty, and that has made people engage with this monarch and bring together, become like that. It has created a community around the monarch also, which has sort of made it a very powerful cultural symbol. And that taken together, I think, is a few elements that has made the monarch a good flagship species to talk for other similar or related species, as well as other pollinators and other butterflies and species that shares their habitats. And
That excerpt was from an earlier episode, so check that out if you'd like. That's The Sociology of Biodiversity with Dr. Karen Gustafson. In this part of that episode, we'll be summarizing 2 to 3 interesting and recent scientific studies about the monarch butterfly. The first study is, in fact, a little bit older, but I think it has some interesting insights into how a species could coordinate multiple generations to complete one single migration. This paper by Zahn et al. In 2011 in the journal Cell is called "The Monarch Butterfly Genome Yields Insights into Long-Distance Migration." And the genome is the collection of genes that this species has. Recently, there's been an explosion of different species having their genome mapped. In this study, the authors present the draft genome of the migratory monarch butterfly. They point out that previous studies suggest that the Lepidoptera are the fastest evolving insect order yet examined, and the Lepidoptera are the order of insects that include butterflies, moths, and one other group. The thing that I think is most fascinating about this article is that different genes get expressed between butterflies that are at rest in a certain location versus migrating. And also, the butterflies can gene edit so they can turn on and off certain genes, and that helps them divide the migration into multiple generations. And the complexity of their migration is partly explained by this turning on and off of genes. So the genetics helps them accomplish such a complex and mysterious feat. I'm going to land briefly on a study by David James and Linda Kappen from 2021 in the journal Insects, because what I wanted to feature here was that in this study by the scientists that we interviewed today, they tagged over 14,000 captive reared and 450 wild monarchs. And a lot of that was done by citizen scientists rearing butterflies and tagging butterflies in their backyard. And so I just wanted to look at the scope of that and be amazed at it. They found a couple interesting things. The average distance a butterfly from the Pacific Northwest in their study migrated, an individual butterfly, was about 900 kilometers. The greatest straight line distance one covered was over 1,300 kilometers. Most of them traveled, give or take, about 20 kilometers per day, but there was one that traveled 46 kilometers per day. So that butterfly was really the Danica Patrick of the monarch butterfly world. We're going to flutter over and alight on a final study called The Monarch Butterflies in Western North America, a holistic review of population trends, ecology, stressors, resilience, and adaptation. And if you're hungry for more after this episode, this is a great summary article about population trends, issues they've had, and also reasons for hope, like we've talked about. This summary is written by David James and was published last year in the journal Insects. I'm going to quote the author. The iconic monarch butterfly has undergone a dramatic decline in Western North America since the 1990s, but in recent years has shown a capacity for resilience. ... Adaptation to changing environmental conditions will be an important component of the ongoing ability of Western monarchs to show resilience. When I first started researching this episode, I became sad and discouraged about some of the numbers I was reading and statistics I was reading about the monarch population. But after reading this article and talking with Dr. David James, I did feel a little glimmer of hope. I guess I can picture those like the little spots of gold on the monarch chrysalis. I have come to a field with dandelions and lilac trees to release the butterflies. Let's see how this goes. Here you go, guys. It's been a little chilly, so I've been waiting for a day when I can do it. Oh, there he goes, flying off into the field. What about you, buddy? They're so beautiful. Those orange and brown and white speckled wings. They're called pretty ladies. Wow, there one goes up into a maple tree. Oh, it just landed on the maple branch. I've got one sitting on my hand, and it's, wow, in the sunlight, it's iridescent where the light is hitting its wings. They're orange and brown, but when the light hits it, there's iridescence. This is cool. I just set one of them on a lilac, and it looked like it fed for a second, and then it flew off. That was the one that sat on my finger for a little bit. Here you go, buddy. Okay, it's up on the lilac, and it's sticking its proboscis into the lilac flowers right now. It's free, and it's feeding. I got a picture of it up on the lilac there. I'll post that on my Patreon page so you can see that one. Most of them have flown up into the maples. I saw them land briefly on maple leaves and then fly off again. It's really beautiful out now and sunny and warm. It was very beautiful watching them fly away. Good luck, butterflies.
Orange, blue, white, green, violet, too bad you'll never see the colors inside me. To become a butterfly, parts of me had to die. Spread my wings in the golden light, and I fly.
Been inspired by our interviewees, and I'm kneeling down right now to plant some milkweed. I'm gonna pick a couple spots in my yard because I'm actually not the best green thumb. Thankfully, I'm better at keeping animals alive than plants. I'm kind of excited. I found some more areas of volunteered milkweed in our yard. I'm just walking around right now. Oh, here's another one and another. Oh my gosh, this is really cool. I'm finding a bunch of milkweeds out here, which I'm marking with bright purple posts. My husband might not know what he agreed to when he said he would mow around the milkweeds. We do have a wild way or rain garden section of our yard, and maybe we'll end up with a big patch out here. So if anyone else out there is also inspired, I know Ward's website will be in the episode notes, and you can go on his website and get some milkweed seeds. I do see a very cute little mollusk here, a beautiful little snail. I'm going to get out my Seek app and identify it. But one thing that you can have when you have a pesticide-free garden is actually an amazing opportunity to find all kinds of interesting little insects. On that note, I'm going to conclude with a poem about the monarch butterfly. Monarch Butterfly by John Behari. This was posted online in 2013. Hanging from the foliage in your hundreds, repainting the leaves in bright shades of black and orange with your waterproof gossamer wings of 4-inch span. So fragile and yet so strong, enabling you to journey south across America from Canada to Mexico, breeding new generations as you travel thousands of miles with an unerring accuracy to the exact place of your birth, to breed a new generation that will initiate the process for the return journey to the north. In due course, you are indeed the monarch of butterflies. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode of Biologica about monarch butterflies. The next episode of Biologica will be about the breeding behavior of horseshoe crabs. They're such a fascinating and ancient species, and I can't wait to share more about them in 2 weeks. Please follow and share Biologica to help keep it rolling and to spread the news. And in the meantime, keep discovering.
Mariposa traicionera, todo se lo lleva el viento.